Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and JBizTechValley.com, getting it correct. And we have a very, very special guest with us, Senator Marty from Brooklyn, different neighborhoods in Brooklyn. Welcome, Senator, to the Jewish View.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. It's a privilege to be here.
Senator, I've known you for many years, and it's a great honor to have you here.
It's my honor.
You are the only enrolled Republican to represent New York City, to represent any district in New York City.
I am. Well, I actually do have. We have one other person. He's got Staten Island. Is Andy Lanza. So but I'm the only one that's today in the other four boroughs. We used to have 7 of us, believe it or not, and we're down to 2. And thank God we have a good friend in Simcha Felder, who is a registered Democrat, but who sits with our conference and votes with our conference, votes his good conscience, and he knows that the Republicans vote the good conscience of the good people of his community.
Did you play a role in getting him to sit with the Republican conference?
It wasn't difficult. We worked closely together, myself and Simcha, over the years. I think Simcha recognized that the best outcome for the community that he represents and the communities of the city and the state of New York were best represented by the Republican conference. So he himself recognized that and was very happy to join us.
Were you both in the city council together?
I did. We were in the city council together.
So
and
that's
I was
where
in
the
with
friendship...
Andy Lanza, too. That's
Oh.
amazing. It's a small, but I worked with a lot of the colleagues.
Now, if you look at the city council now, a lot of them were former state legislators.
Correct.
But you came up here.
Correct.
Which did you like better? The higher paying city council, where you didn't travel as much?
City council gets more money? I didn't even know that.
It was lower paying.
It's almost we had passed a law here in the state legislature that we were going through. It never became law, though. We had passed it the first year. We had to come back and vote. The second year, become part of the actual charter, is to go according to the cost of living, like the Congress does. And Congress did it correctly. It's not an issue. People get a raise just like every year according to the cost of living. The city council, in its own wisdom, infinite wisdom, voted themselves a nice, handsome raise some years ago, and they're up to $120,000 a year. When I tell people that I'm a state legislature and I represent so many, 400,000 people in our community, and my salary, I think we make a tremendous amount of money, is $79,500. That I'm in management, that I have a good committee, and I am the conference leader, so I get an extra, $19,000 for doing that. So
Now, I saw that you were the assistant majority whip.
Well, actually, I'm the conference leader. I was the whip, and I've been promoted. Now I'm the conference leader.
Well, I don't know when that happened, but you should update your website.
We should do that. Thank you.
Well, Senator, a lot of things I've heard, and Mark, as I always say on the show, is he's our political advisor and I'm the rabbi, but you hear that the Senate is dysfunctional a lot because there's Democrats and Republicans. They don't know. I mean, how is the session now is coming to a close? How would you say that, Democrats, you mentioned Simcha Felder, who was on our Jewish View. I mean, how is it working with the Democrats? Does it go smoothly, or maybe there's a lot of infighting or whatever?
Well, there were 3 parties, the Independent Democratic Conference also.
Yes, and the relationships between the Independent Democrats and the Republicans is a positive one. We are joined together, and we vote together as a body in many of the pieces of legislation that are put forward. So there were 5 members in the Independent Democratic Conference. There were 30 members in the Republican Conference. That gives us 35 votes. There were 63 members in the body, and that giving the balance to the Democrats, what gives us the majority. The majority, any one majority today is 32 votes. So you need 32 to have the majority of the conference. And right now we're at 30. With the Independent Democrats is 5. That gives us 35. And that's how we get accomplished what we need to get accomplished in this great state. And it's worked pretty well. We've worked with Jeffrey Klein is the leader of the Independent Democrats, and Dean Skelos is from Long Island, is the leader of the Republican Conference, and it works very, very well. Yeah. And then Simcha obviously is part of that as well.
Well, I have a breakdown. There are 24 what they call regular Democrats, 5 independent Democrats, 1 vacant seat for Senator Adams, and then also Senator Fischello. But you have the Democrat Felder siding with the GOP. And then you have Malcolm Smith and John Sampson, both under indictment, who are not in who are not welcome in either conference or any of the three conferences. So, you know, there is somewhat, I mean, they're spread out all over. Now, personally, I kind of like this because, you know, it sort of shows a crossover and you can do, but I remember when I first got here and I asked, well, why couldn't, and you know, I think Warren Anderson was the Senate Majority Leader, was asking, well, why couldn't a Democrat chair a committee? Oh no, are you kidding? You're too young, kid. You know, you're too young. And here I am living the thought that I had back then, because there are a lot of Democrats now. Well, Carl Kruger was the first one to chair the Social Services Committee.
Under Joe Bruno, when Joe Bruno was the leader of the Senate,
Right.
we worked closely with Carl Kruger, and Carl obviously got himself into
Some
trouble
problems,
as well. And it's a number of these senators that have gone off the path and have done things that are illegal and have been placed in indictment, and some of them have been arrested for those charges.
And Carl Kruger sitting in Otisville Federal
Correct.
Penitentiary right now, in case
Correct.
anyone wants to know.
Correct.
What's your reaction to Joe Bruno's acquittal?
I think it was an overzealous prosecution. I believe that he was found guilty by his peers, a body of his peers, and they went after him a second time. Most would consider that double jeopardy. If in fact he was guilty the first time, he should have been charged, and the jury found him not guilty. As the jury the second time found him not guilty. That's 9 years, right, that's gone through. Man has cancer. The man is, I understand, financially broke. Think about that. You give your time and your life to government, and this is this is what happens. It's wrong. If you're guilty of a crime, you deserve to go to jail. My former position as a New York City police officer, I believe if you cross that line, you deserve to go to jail. And especially when the people that trust you and across this state give you their vote, they're giving you that vote because they believe you're going to honor them and to respect them and to respect their views and to vote the conscience of your community. And unfortunately, a lot have shown us that that's not what they do. And that's why people distrust government.
Knowing Joe Bruno as well as you did or do you think he's the type of man who would get involved in cutting too close to the line, and now he just kind of skirted it but didn't cross it? I mean, do you think that what he did was basically what we read in the accounts from the prosecution, I guess, and the defense? But what was is this a way to conduct yourself as a majority leader of the state Senate?
You have the Assembly Speaker, Shelley Silver, and he has he's a lawyer in a law firm, and he works and he gains employment from that company, and many of the people in the Senate and in the Assembly do have second incomes. Those that belong to either law firms or accounting firms are allowed to do that. I do not have that ability, and many of my colleagues do not have that ability. But if you do, there's nothing wrong about it, there's nothing illegal about it, and if you cross that line and you do favors for somebody that you're representing from your company, then that's wrong. And that's what they tried to go after Joe Bruno for, and they found that they did not cross that line.
Do you think that he skirted the line and just came as close as he could? I mean, without going over it? I mean, and is that a way to conduct yourself as a Senate Majority Leader?
Well, I personally would not do it. He did. I think he had the ability, and as I said earlier, that he was found not guilty by not one jury, by two separate juries. Two separate juries found him not guilty. So I would have to go along with this justice system that we have here in this great nation. If two juries can find him not guilty, Senator Golden can find him not guilty as well.
The first jury found him guilty on 2 counts that were thrown out by the U.S. Supreme Court. So that was vacated at that point.
Vacated, correct.
So let me just ask you, you mentioned you were a police officer.
Yes, sir.
1983 was a bad year for you.
1982 was actually.
82.
It was September of 1982. I was run down in a drug sale, and I retired in December of '83.
Okay.
So that's when I was forced to get out of the police department.
What happened to you?
I was run down chasing a suspect in a drug sale, and we crossed in the 6-7 precinct over in Bedford Avenue. I ran across the street, and I got clocked by a car, got hit pretty bad. And I have 2 ligaments missing here, 1 here, and a plate here, and I look like I'm calling a play for the Yankees, go to first. But God has been good. There are people in far worse shape. I'm in pretty decent shape. The arthritis kicks in. I tell people, I had both my biceps done, I had rotator cuff done, I had a pinned hip. I look like,
Bionic man.
yeah, but I'm blessed. I am really blessed, and I thank God.
How
every
old
day.
are you now?
63 years of age.
Wow, you don't look it. You look younger.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
The senator, as we said, from Brooklyn, and that means there's a lot of Jewish areas. What's the interface between you and Jewish? And of course, it's a Jewish view. We'd like to hear that. And of course, I'm personally with Chabad Group. Like to hear that, how you interface with all these. You have a Jewish name, at least that I know I can start off with.
I will start by your viewers will find this interesting and not really amusing, but at least interesting, that when I was running for Senate, I was knocking on some doors, and I knocked on a door and I said, Martin Golden, I'd like you to vote for me for Senate. And the guy looks at me and says, I don't vote for no blank Jew, and slammed the door in my face in 2002. You wouldn't think that still happened in this day and age, but unfortunately it did then, and we can see today. We've just locked up an individual not too long ago in Brooklyn, and he was a former police officer. It was drawing SWAT stickers on cars and on buildings, and constantly you're seeing this still going on, that hatred that should not be going on. It's very, very sad. I represent one of the most dynamic communities. I got Bay Ridge and Dyker Heights and Bensonhurst and Borough Park and Midwood and Sheepshead Bay, and I go into Marine Park and Garrison Beach. And I got to tell you, I have one of the largest Palestinian communities, Muslim communities. I have a large Lebanese Syrian community, Christian community. I have, not too far from that, Borough Park, one of the largest Hasidic communities, and right next door I have one of the largest Sephardic communities, and a little bit further I have a large Russian Jewish community, and I still have on top of that a large Irish and Italian population, and about 67,000 or so Asians, Chinese Americans. So I have a real dynamic community that I'm able to deal with on a regular basis and interface and be responsible and make sure that I address the concerns of the communities. And the Jewish community is the same needs as anybody else. Something we'll talk about relatively soon will be the education tax credit, hopefully, that we're going to try and fight and get done. But making sure we deliver for the different the schools, the transportation systems, our healthcare systems, and working with, I was just up cutting a ribbon for a new, shul and synagogue over in the Sephardic community the other day. And the community is still growing. The Jewish communities, the schools are opening up. The communities are growing and larger, and they're expanding. Marine Park was a smaller Irish-Italian community today. There was 1,500 to 2,000 Jewish families living there. So it's growing community in southern Brooklyn, and it continues to grow. And I work with Chabad. I had them on my 4th Avenue on 81st Street. I have the Bay Ridge Jewish Center, and they came down to Owlshead Park, and they had a little march and a little walk yesterday, and it's good to see them out there and working with them. And they come around every for the holidays, and we make sure we do what's right, and getting up, whether it's candle lightings or whatever we do to make sure that we bring awareness and that the families get the ability to pray together and interface together with our communities. And we do a great job at it. We have no problems whatsoever. And they're very close communities.
Yeah.
They're all, relatively a few blocks separating each one of these communities. They go, and the schools work well, and the transportation system works well. So I got to say, I got one of the luckiest guys around, because I have that type of diversity. I have a great, safe, all my precincts are probably the safest in the city. I have some of the best school districts in the city, and the speeding cameras that the good mayor is putting into the city of New York, which I think are not really wild about them, but they wanted these speeding cameras. And so I'm going to make sure I dedicate the funding from, or the money coming in from these cameras, that it gets dedicated towards school safety zones in Borough Park, in Midwood. So we have flashing yellows, we have stop signs, and we make sure that the people know that these schools are there. And we do it across for both public and parochial schools across our city, and we've reduced the speed limits. So those are the types of things that we accomplish in delivering money with the Simca Felder last year, $13 million to dedicated towards the after 4:30 school buses, so we can get our kids back and forth from our different schools to different sports and different homes and back and forth. And that, you know, it gets dark at 4 o'clock in the winter months. So this was good stuff that we do.
How many assembly districts are in your Senate district?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. I guess
'Cause
I
it
get
seems
5.
like it
1, 2,
must
3,
be
4,
10.
5, 6. No, 6.
Six. One of them is Dov Hikins, right?
Hiken touches me, yes.
And I remember on Ocean Parkway, you and him had some sort of news conference. I happened to be in the city, but there was a couple of years ago, and there was some bias attacks or graffiti, hateful graffiti, and you were on cars and damaged cars. Do you remember?
I do indeed,
Yes.
and we also went out and
Can
we
you
got
talk about that a little bit more?
the young boy that was kidnapped and killed, and we went out there and we went and got cameras, and we put these cameras around the community because of the 5 or 6 cars in Ocean Parkway, which started before the young boy was kidnapped and killed, and that started the I guess and Dove's thinking that, you know, we had more of these cameras out that there'd be safety. And of course, the kidnapping and the death of that young boy is what really came to a head, and we managed to get those cameras installed throughout the community. And they came to nabbing and locking up people today for doing heinous crimes. And that model is being copied today around the city and other cities around the nation, and being able to set up cameras and be able to track the bad element or the bad players in the community, where there are drugs, where there are issues. And I think that was something I was proud to be able to work with Dov Hiken to accomplish.
So the vandalism to the cars, and I don't know if they were swastikas, but
Yes, they were. And they had firebombed. They firebombed 2 of them.
And you know, I remember you had a great visual, you know, on Ocean Parkway there. And now I understand Kevin Parker has legislation that just got passed the Senate that had to deal with hate crime, graffiti. You voted in favor
Yes,
with it, I guess.
and
But it's unusual that a minority candidate, or someone from the Democratic Party gets a bill passed in the Senate. So.
Well, you know what, it's not a Democrat or a Republican thing.
No, it's
hate
not.
crime is something that we have to deal with in this city and in this state. It's a shame. This is 2014. You'd think, Rabbi, that we wouldn't have to go through this.
Right.
And unfortunately, we do. And so that's why I supported that type of legislation. You know, it's a shame. I got a couple of cemeteries. They go in there, you knock over the stones, and they graffiti the stones. And, you know, it's wrong, but it just doesn't happen to the Jewish community. It happens to the Catholic and the Lutheran communities as well. And it's something that should not be tolerated. And I think that Senator Parker's legislation is a good piece of legislation.
You were sponsor of the SAFE Act.
Yes. Well, I wasn't a sponsor of the SAFE Act. I voted for the SAFE Act, but I was not a sponsor of it.
I thought you were the sponsor of the SAFE Act.
No.
Why?
I passed, my legislation that I passed is the legislation that increased the possession of a weapon. If you had a gun in the city and state of New York, they used to slap your hand and you'd get 3 months in jail.
Right.
You know, so you got a gun, that takes and kills people. So what you want to be able to do is to put people behind bars that do in fact commit these crimes with guns. So what we did, it's guaranteed 3.5 years in jail. The district attorneys in the city of New York agreed, and they put you in. The least you could do with getting caught with an illegal gun, firearm, was 2 years. So we've moved up the actual possession of a gun, an illegal gun, in the city of New York and in the state of New York up to 2 years to 3.5 years. SAFE Act is similar. It bumps the crime up on illegal guns to 3.5 years if you're caught with the gun. Again, it's the same piece of legislation that I had passed. It also does something to the magazines, and it gets rid of the AR-15s. Those are the tremendous rifles with the they're like machine guns. We don't need AR-15s in the city of New York. Are you entitled under the Constitution to be able to bear arms? The answer is yes. The person that bears arms has to be of sound mind, has to be a constituent that's gone through a process, that fills out an application, that we know is somebody that's fit to own and to operate a gun, and to have that gun in the city of New York. There's only 38,000 permits in the city of New York out of 8.5 million people.
Do you have one of them?
I have one of them.
Okay.
So
As a former policeman. It's interesting because, again, we have many people on the Jewish Route. We have about 100, and we had 5 police commissioners locally, and most of them weren't for the SAFE Act. And, you're not just a person, you're a former police officer, so it's very interesting. You're probably the first one that was for it. They didn't feel that would really negate crime that much, or diminish crime.
Well, I take your time. Getting rid of the AR-15s, I think, was the right thing to do. You don't need those types of weapons. And as I said before, if you got an illegal gun, you belong in jail. All right, and we got more guns. There's more illegal guns in the city of New York. There's almost as many illegal. I hate to say this on TV, but there's almost as illegal guns as there are pigeons in the city of New York. So just to give you an idea, people go in, they don't safeguard their guns. They do burglaries. They steal those guns that are legal guns. That's how they get on the street. They bring it up through I-95. They buy the guns down in Virginia and other states. They bring them in here and they sell them in our city here. And it has become a real travesty that these guns are out there.
What goes on in Albany here is that they have what's called a community gun, and they hide it underneath the set of steps.
That's my believe it or not, that's my bill. I have that, and we're trying to get that done.
To do what?
Exactly that. We're going to add a charge to that community gun. Like there might be 5 or 6 people. It's part of my gang legislation. I have gang legislation. Today, 30% of the homicides, the robberies, the murders being committed in the city of New York and in the large cities around the state of New York are committed by gang members. So we got a piece of legislation that targets gang members. It's all it does. You initiate somebody into a gang, you partake in a gang and commit a crime, proceeds you get from the crime, we take those proceeds, we enhance the crimes that you've committed to the next level, and we put you in jail for some serious time. That is one of the crimes that are committed heavily by the gangs, is the community gun. Right. They got one gun, they'll go out there, they'll do 6 or 7 robberies, everybody knows where the gun is, they go and get it, and so we're
But they don't return their book to the library,
but
they return the gun to the steps.
We're going after them. We're not going to let them get away with that. We're going to keep our city safe.
Okay, so in the few minutes we have remaining, the education and income tax credit,
yes.
I spoke to the governor about it. He said he just couldn't do it. We didn't have enough money in the budget to do it. Is it dead for this year, or what's going on?
Well, one would hope that it's not dead. We believe that there is a piece of legislation can be passed that doesn't, we're not going to be able to start it if we pass it over the next 3 weeks. We wouldn't start it within the next 3 weeks. We'd probably start in January anyway, so there'd be a new budget there, and we'd be able to put money towards that budget. We're talking about $300 million out of a $142 billion budget. If this good governor can't find that $300 million, I think there's something wrong. He's able to find that money if he needs it, and the money is set aside, and he should use that money. $150 million would go to public education, and $150 million would go to parochial education. Okay. So nobody can come after us on the Blaine Act and saying that we gave money to parochial schools. What I believe is the parents have the right to make the best decisions on where to educate their children.
Okay.
And you know what? Mm-hmm. You got public, you got charter, you have parochial, you have private, and you have homeschool. You take best practices out of that, you move forward, and you create the greatest education system in the country right here in the state of New York. but you need to be able to afford our parochial schools the opportunity to stay open, the opportunity to give the education, and the opportunity for the parents to send their kids to those schools. So that's our focus, and it will remain my focus until we get that done. So I think there is still a chance and an opportunity that you will see kids here in Albany participating in what they would call civil government, civics, and going out there and asking the governor to pass this bill. I think you'll see some signatures coming to the governor's desk as well, because it's the right thing
I
to
have a
do.
quick question about the Republican slate, statewide slate. What do you think of the nominees on the Republican side?
Well, I think the Rob Astorino is a great choice. I got to tell you, he's sharp, he's good, and I believe that Governor Cuomo is going to have a serious race on his hands. And
His running mate, Chris Moss, first black statewide candidate on the Republican ticket.
yeah, I think that's an issue, and I think it's a good issue. And
Chemung County
His
Sheriff.
Sheriff is a great
So
guy.
law enforcement guy, you must bond with him, huh?
I think that he will do fine, and I think that is a definite good. That's going to be an issue for Governor Cuomo. I think he's going to have some problems, and I think that you're going to see this ticket. Cahill from
John Cahill running against Eric Schneiderman.
Eric Schneiderman
For Attorney General.
Very bright, very articulate, very intelligent, knows the issues. So I think you got a real
Knows how to
good
fight
king.
dirty also. He
I
knows
got
how to fight dirty, that's
know,
for sure.
Rob Astorino, they think he could win the county leadership,
executive.
right? They counted him out. I wouldn't count him out of this race
And
yet.
Bob Antonacci, from Onondaga County Comptroller, is taking the public financing route. Do you agree with this? I mean, I don't know how you voted
I
in
think
terms of public
financing
but
is not something that we in the state, you know, if public financing would cost, it would cost $200 million. Do you think $200 million would be better spent on private and public education?
Well, there
Do
you
you
go.
think that that's where one area that we could probably find it is probably right there? Why would we want to spend money that we can put towards our roads, towards our public safety, towards our education, to something that doesn't work? We see the city of New York.
Yeah.
They just locked up the city councilman only this past week. What was his name? Willis, out of Queens. So it
Reuben
does,
Willis,
Reuben Willis, right?
yeah.
So you see the numbers. It's still there. They're still being arrested, and they're still finding people going into campaign finance. You know why? Because they get matching funds.
Right.
So they hire their nieces, their nephews, and they.
So do you fault Bob Antonacci for doing
I
this?
think he was foolish to fall into that campaign finance game. I think it doesn't work. I wish it did, but I don't think it works.
Okay. Rabbi, did you want to say
We have a
quick
few
question?
minutes.
Yeah,
A
I mean,
few
you want to talk about
questions.
9/11 Museum?
Yeah, no, that's important because, I mean, again, police officer, and I know a lot of your legislation is law and order, but the things that, there's a little bit of a controversy with the World Trade Center, that they have a museum there, which is beautiful, but tell us about it. How does one get in there, and what they had, like the trinkets? It's
I was there. It was one of the saddest moments because I was there shortly thereafter on 9/11. I went down there. We set up in Bay Ridge and in other parts of the community. We had set up avenues that would bring, they were actual routes to go into 9/11 and help to assist the people in the pit trying to save lives. You had we had tools designed, built for the iron workers. We had cranes and equipment sent in. So we were there on a regular basis, and we've suffered, and we worked and cried and laughed with the families of those 3,000 that perished here and those that perished in Pennsylvania and in Washington, D.C. That same type of camaraderie, that same feeling came about. The people came and did what they were supposed to do. They responded to some of the worst tragedy that this nation had ever seen. And I'm proud to have seen that. And that came back when I came to the memorial this past week, and I sat there, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place as we looked at the names and the faces of those that had died and perished, and some of the stuff that was left behind, and how we've grown and how we've gone after and taken out Osama bin Laden, and how we've paid with military lives. And today we still have people dying this very day from the diseases that they caught, the cancers that they caught from working down at 9/11. So when I hear that you got to pay $24 to go visit this museum, I think it's a shame. That was hit, that building, because it's the heart and soul of this very nation. It was the financial capital of the world, and it still is. So when they came here, they did that for a purpose, right? They didn't take our heart and soul. They made us stronger as a nation, and we remain stronger today. So I believe the federal government should be in here. They should be taking care of some of the expenses that are being incurred by that site. It is over $60 million. I mean, that's tremendous, tremendous dollars that you have to try to make up and come to raise fundraising and having this money to be able to pay for these bills. But to put in, on the same time, they put in a gift shop that sells jewelry and dog coats and shotskas that are insensitive and are plain wrong to raise money. I don't think that belongs there at all. I believe the federal government should step up, do the right thing. Our U.S. senators, our congressional team should go in there and fight for more money for us. The Parks Department, the federal parks, but they should be operating that, and it should be it's an area where people can go solemnly see their loved ones, or come and see not just this generation, but many generations to come and see what happened and how we responded as a nation. So I think it's a lot of things went wrong, but I got to tell you, it's a heartwarming place to go. It's you take there, there's a rush that comes over you, tears will come down your eyes, and it's something that I do recommend everybody go and do. I just wish that they'd find a way of bringing the cost down and getting rid of some of the stuff they're selling at that museum.
Senator, we're out of time. It was very, very important to talk to you, and I'm sure for our viewers also, because you're the senator of the people. You're doing the people's fight, and we just appreciate you doing it. We always end with a blessing. You carry on your good work and with good health for many, many years.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mark.